What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to game number 14 of my resolution gaming project, which I only have because I accidentally bought Dear Esther like 10 years ago when I thought that it was going to be some RPG. I think actually the original Dear Esther, it was like the first quote-unquote walking simulator ever released, at least on Steam. I mean, don't quote me on that, but it's the first one that I'd ever heard of up until that point. Hence the purchase. And Landmark Edition is just free if you purchase the original game. Anyway, I have a headache, so wait, oh, these are levels, okay. Just see. Yeah, I have a headache, so we're gonna just chill out here. And let the game take us away.
Dear Esther, I've lost track of how long I've been here and how many visits I have made overall. Certainly the landmarks are now so familiar to me that I have to remind myself to actually see the forms and shapes in front of me. I could stumble blind across these rocks, the edges of these precipices, without fear of missing my step and plummeting down to sea. Besides, I have always considered that if one is to fall, it is critical to keep one's eyes firmly open.
I don't know why I always look in the toilet in games. Hold on. This mouse sensitivity's a little... I have a very high DPI mouse, so it's a little fast for me. Here we go. Huh. When I first booted this game, the first time I got it, well, I only got it once, but the first time I played it, and I seen this flashlight turn on, I expected it to become a horror game. I just sunk into the ground a little bit there. It's weird. You can zoom in. Hope I'm not getting sick or anything. So, the first choice that we ever make. I'll go down. Take the low road. Man, this was so beautiful back in 2010 or so. I hate beaches in real life. Coca-Cola. It's a cola-cola. Okay. Should we go up and check this out? Or no?
There was once talk of a wind farm out here, away from the rage and the intolerance of the masses. The sea, they said, is too rough for the turbines to stand.
Connects
They
to the
clearly
other
never came here to experience the
path
becalming for
from before.
themselves. Personally, I would have supported it. Turbines would be a fitting contemporary refuge for a hermit. The revolution and the permanence.
Oh, wait. That's weird. Would the other path have just ended there? Interesting. Now, there are secrets in this game. Like, secret, figures you can see off in the distance or whatever, I think.
Reading Donnelly by the weak afternoon sunlight, he landed on the south side of the island, followed the path to the bay and climbed the mount. He did not find the caves, and he did not chart the north side. I think this is why his understanding of the island is flawed, incomplete. He stood on the mount and only wondered momentarily how to descend. But then, he didn't have my reasons.
Yeah, but we're not gonna look for those secrets or anything.
When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
I thought this game was so pretentious the first time I played it. It still is, but I mean, at least I can kind of appreciate it now. All this pretentious glory. It's okay.
We are not like Lot's wife, you and I. We feel no particular need to turn back. There's nothing to be seen if we did. No tired old man parting the cliffs with his arms. No gifts or Bibles laid out on the sand for the taking. No tides turning or the shrieking gulls overhead. The bones of the hermit are no longer laid out for the taking. I have stolen them away to the guts of this island, where the passages all run to black, and where we can light each other's faces by their strange luminescence. Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life. I threw my arms wide and the cliff opened out before me, making this rough home. I transferred my belongings from the bothy on the mount and tried to live here instead. It was cold at night and the sea lapped at the entrance at high tide. To climb the peak, I must first venture even deeper into the veins of the island, where the signals are blocked altogether. Only then will I understand them, when I stand on the summit and they flow into me, uncorrupted.
Still kind of spooky.
He still maintains he wasn't drunk, but tired. I can't make the judgment or the distinction anymore. I was drunk when I landed here, and tired too. I walked up the cliff path in near darkness and camped in the bay where the trawler lies beached. It was only at dawn that I saw the bothy and decided to make my temporary lodgings there. I was expecting just the aerial and a transmitter stashed in a weatherproof box somewhere on the mount. It had an air of uneasy permanence to it. Like all the other buildings here, erosion seems to have evaded it completely.
Forget what was this way. Ah, just nothing. I think we're gonna beat this game. Well, beat is subjective, but you know what I mean. This world is so painstakingly created. So much effort. Put into nothing, basically. I mean, I say nothing, but I'm also not really a consumer of art either, as it were.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome break services. But although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
I remember liking this area because it's just kind of a wide open area you can explore. I think I'm supposed to go over there, across this valley, to progress in the game. Ugh, still find myself wishing I could sprint.
All night the boy has kept me lucid. I sat, when I was at the very edge of despair, when I thought I would never unlock the secret of the island, I sat at the edge and I watched the idiot boy blink through the night. He's mute and he is retarded, and he has no thought in his metal head but to blink each wave and each minute aside until the morning comes and renders him blind as well as deaf-mute. In many ways, we have much in common.
Neither did he eat nor drink. Go up on this hill first. Final notice. This is a different language, I think. Quita certificated. Bailiffs. No, it's not a different language. Warrant of execution. Someone's gonna be executed. Maybe on this ship. See what we can find. I spent hours, not hours, but I spent a long time trying to get on this ship before I realized we couldn't, and that this game was actually nothing. Nothing but headache relief. Dear Esther, sorry for your headache. Play this game for relief. Oh, what's down here? Oh, nothing. Interesting. Let me go down here first. Maybe there's a dialogue line.
There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived?
Okay then. I do plan on using this video series to learn a little bit of, um, you know,
I had kidney
basic
stones,
video
and you
editing.
visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk. When I first looked into the shaft, I swear I felt the stones in my stomach shift in recognition. I've begun to climb, away from the sea and towards the center. It is a straight line to the summit, where the evening begins to coil around the aerial and squeeze the signals into early silence. The bothy squats against the mount to avoid the gaze of the aerial. I too will creep under the island like an animal and approach it from the northern shore.
There's that dinghy blinking away.
The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him either. My heart is landfill, these false dawns waking into the still never light. I sweat for you in the small hours and wrap my blankets into a mass. I have always heard the waves break on these lost shores, always the gulls forgotten. I can lift this bottle to my ear, and all there ever is for me is this Hebridean music.
There was one of the secrets. It's like supposedly a figure holding a lantern over in the cave across the way. don't think we can see it anymore. Oh, probably gone. This is pretty
Jakobsen's
precarious.
ribcage, they told Donnelly, was deformed, the result of some birth defect or perhaps a traumatic injury as a child. Brittle and overblown it was, and desperately light. Perhaps it was this that finally did for him, unable to contain the shattering of his heart. In half-light, his skeleton a discarded prop, a false and calcified seabird.
They found Jakobsen in early spring. The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. All around him, small flowers were reaching for the weak sun. The goats had adjusted happily to life without a shepherd and were grazing freely about the valley. Donnelly reports they hurled the body in fear and disgust down the shaft, but I cannot corroborate this story. Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent. Did Jakobsen crawl this far? Can I identify the scratches his nails ruined into the rocks? Am I following him cell for cell, inch for inch? Why did he turn back on himself and not carry through to the ascent?
So at this point, I was sure that this game was horror, and I was ready for some cannibal tribe of people or some weird proto-monster to come out of these caves. Because of those...
I first saw him sat by the side of the road. I was waiting for you to be cut out of the wreckage. The car looked like it had been dropped from a great height. The guts of the engine spilled over the tarmac, like water underground.
These look like blueprints. Or mad ramblings. Mad scrawlings. By the way, caves don't form like this. These water noises are nice. The audio design in this game is top tier. No one ever talks about the audio design in Assassin's Creed, but that is some great audio. Like, listen to the crowds in that game. I'm talking about Assassin's Creed 1, but I'm sure that they just got better over time. I've played all of them, I'm talking about specifically the audio design. But 1 is the only one that I remember being pretty impressed by, like, the accuracy of the crowd noises. Because you can hear separate conversations going on in that game in the background, like at all times. And it's pretty cool. Auto crouch. Seemed like I crouched. Am I ever gonna stand? Here.
If the caves are my guts, this must be the place where the stones are first formed. The bacteria phosphoresce and rise, singing through the tunnels. Everything here is bound by the rise and fall, like a tide. Perhaps the whole island is actually underwater.
Let's search this area a little. Don't think that's oh, what is that? Piece of something floating down. Oh, it's a little paper boat. We all float down here. Oh, it got stuck. Wow. There's a ton of them. Wonder who sends them all down here. Is that one? Yeah. crystals now. Maybe.
This is a drowned man's face, reflected in the moonlit waters. It can only be a dead shepherd who has come to drunk drive you home.
Behold, Damascus is fallen. Away from being a city. And it shall be a ruinous name. I'll look up that quote later. August 22nd. No, that's AGTS 22 0. Oh. Huh. I don't think I remember this part of the game. Coins. I smell pennies. Ah! Fucking divine. What's this? Oh, I can swim. Interesting, huh? Try and swim up.
The moon over the Sanford Junction, headlights in your retinas. Donnelly drove a grey hatchback without a bottom. All the creatures of the tarmac rose to sing to him. All manner of symbols crudely scrawled across the cliff face of my unrest. My life reduced to an electrical diagram. All my gulls have taken flight. They will no longer roost on these outcrops. The lure of the moon over the Sanford Junction is too strong.
Check this out first. Candles on a beach are cool.
Dear Esther, I find each step harder and heavier. I drag Donnelly's corpse on my back across these rocks, and all I hear are his whispers of guilt, his reminders, his burnt letters, his neatly folded clothes. He tells me I was not drunk at all. Hall, by the roadside, by the exit for Damascus, all ticking and cooled, all feathers and remorse, all of these signals routed like traffic through the circuit diagrams of our guts, those badly written boats torn bottomless in the swells, washing us forever ashore.
A light from heaven shone around him.
From here, I can see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the Atlantic, and I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink.
On a sudden, a light from heaven shone around him, and he fell to the ground. All of a sudden, maybe. On a sudden. Huh. I'm not gonna sit here and watch all of them sink.
I will drag my leg behind me. I will drag it like a crumpled hatchback, tires blown and sparking across the dimming lights of my vision. I'm running out of painkillers and am following the flicker of the moon home. When Paul keeled over dead on the road to Damascus, they restarted his heart with the jump leads from a crumpled hatchback. It took 21 attempts to convince it to wake up. I've begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom. I will fly to the moon in it. I've been folded along a crease in time, a weakness in the sheet of life. Now you've settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. I can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and carves parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.
And as he was proceeding on his journey, was come near to Damascus, maybe.
If only Donnelly had experienced this, he would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection. Headlights reflected in these retinas. Too long in the tunnels of my island without a bottom. The sea creatures have risen to the surface, but the gulls are not here to carry them back to their nests. I've become fixed, open and staring, an eye turned on itself. I've become an infected leg whose tracking lines form a perfect map of the junctions of the M5. I will take the exit at mid-thigh and plummet to my Esther.
And it came to pass that as I made my journey, I'll finish that when I get up there. came to pass that as I made my journey, and was come high. Yeah, I can't read it without falling. Well, ironically. New moon? Yeah. From heaven, a great light round about me. And could not see.
A gull perched on a
Lord.
spent bonnet, sideways, whilst the sirens fell through the middle distance and the metal moaned in grief about us. I'm about this night in walking, old bread and gull bones, old Donnelly at the bar gripping his drink, old Esther walking with our children, old Paul as ever, old Paul. He shakes and he shivers and he turns off his lights alone.
I am the Ariel. In my passing, I will send news to each and every star. Dear Esther, I have burnt my belongings, my books, this death certificate. Mine will be written all across this island. Who was Jakobsen? Who remembers him? Donnelly has written of him, but who was Donnelly? Who remembers him? I have painted, carved, hewn, scored into this space all that I could draw from him. There will be another to these shores to remember me. I will rise from the ocean like an island without bottom, come together like a stone, become an Ariel, a beacon, that they will not forget you. We've always been drawn here. One day the gulls will return and nest in our bones and our history. I will look to my left and see Esther Donnelly flying beside me. I will look to my right and see Paul Jakobsen flying beside me. They will leave white lines carved into the air to reach the mainland, where help will be sent.